Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're doing good today. So, NBA 2K26 just dropped update 1.4, and there's a lot to talk about. This isn't just some small patch that fixes one or two random bugs. This thing really hits across my career, the city, my team, and even the PC side of things. What I want to do here is break it all down in a way that feels natural, like if we were just hanging out and talking about the game. I'll go step by step, talk curl, give you the details on what's changed, and also sprinkle in how it affects your experience if you've been grinding the game every day. By the end of this, you'll have a really clear picture of what's different now and why this patch actually matters if you're serious about 2K. So let's start with the area that most people probably care about first, the city and all the connected modes like Pro-Am, Rec, Theater, and Park. For the longest time, one of the most frustrating things in those modes was the random crashes or disconnects. You'd be in the middle of a close Pro-Am game, locked in, maybe even running with your crew, and suddenly the game just boots you out. That's not only annoying, it's brutal if you're trying to climb leaderboards or if you've invested hours in getting chemistry with your team. Patch 1.04 addresses that, and from what's in the notes, those stability issues have been tightened up. Now, obviously, with any patch, we'll have to see how well that holds up once thousands of players are testing it in real time. But at least on paper, this is a step in the right direction. Another fix in this update that stood out to me is the My Court issue. Some people were dealing with their game basically hanging whenever they tried to customize their court floor. Imagine putting in the time to unlock customization or wanting to flex your style, only to be stuck because the game literally freezes on you. That should be resolved now so you can go back to making your court actually feel like home. And along with that, the update also made sure quests that involve going to My Court actually track properly, which means you won't be stuck waiting on progress for no reason. There's also something for people chasing those lifetime challenges. Takeover tracking has been a bit messy in past versions, and if you're trying to complete those long grind challenges, every little error feels like wasted time. With this update, the tracking is fixed so you don't get cheated out of progress. Speaking of grinding, the Gatorade Training Facility treadmill workout now finally lets you earn 4 stars like it's supposed to. Before, people were hitting perfect runs and still not getting rewarded properly, which was another frustrating bug. Um, if you're trying to maximize your My Player, this one matters more than you might think because those little boosts add up when you're playing online. One of the bigger quality of life improvements is tied to perks and crews. Some players noticed they were losing their cap breaker perks or badge +1/+2 perks when they left a crew, which really shouldn't be happening. That's been fixed, and even better, the patch restores those perks for anyone who lost them before. So if you were hit by that bug, this update should give you back what you earned. It's the kind of fix that shows 2K is at least listening to the player base because perks are too valuable to just vanish. Challenges also got some love. There was a weird issue where they weren't tracking properly across different save files. So if you were switching between builds, sometimes your challenge progress just didn't sync up. Now it does. And for the daily challenges, the games you play in the Gatorade training facility actually count, which makes sense. A daily challenge should be something you can knock out in different parts of the game, and now that's actually possible. Another complaint a lot of Pro-Am players had was about those long camera cuts. You'd be in the middle of a game, possession switches, and instead of keeping the pace moving, the camera sits there for way too long. It kills the momentum, and in competitive matches, that can throw off the rhythm. Patch 1.04 cuts down those awkward delays, which should make Pro-Am smoother. They've also cleaned up some takeover system issues. There was a bug where players could sometimes activate takeover abilities they weren't even qualified for in online games, and that's been patched so it's more fair across the board. One of the more interesting tweaks is how they changed the up for the challenge performance multiplier conditions. If you're not familiar, that's basically something that boosts how you earn things based on how well you play, but some of the requirements were just way too strict before. With this patch, the conditions have been made less punishing, so it's more realistic for players to actually take advantage of it. That's a big win for grinders who felt like they were hitting a wall with that system. They also patched a message issue with the theater. Some people were getting a notification saying event has ended even when it hadn't, which made it impossible to enter. Now that's cleaned up so you can actually get into events when you're supposed to. Plus, there were rare cases where the game would hang if you invited players into My Court or when you were heading into the NBA arena. Those situations should be resolved, which again, just makes the whole experience smoother. Moving into MyCAREER, this is where a couple of pretty important changes landed. For one, quests that required you to visit the My Court weren't always completing properly, and that's fixed now. And maybe even bigger, the rebirth feature wasn't unlocking for some people. That's something a lot of players look forward to because it makes building alternate players so much easier, and now it should unlock the way it's intended to. Switching over to my team, performance in the auction house menus has been improved, which is big because the auction house can sometimes be laggy and clunky, especially when everyone's trying to snipe cards at the same time. On top of that, there was this annoying bug where coaches would get removed from your lineup after editing, even if you didn't touch that slot. That's been fixed, and now your lineup should stay the way you set it. Another smart move from the patch is preventing players from getting stuck in the Welcome to My Team tutorial. That's a first step for a lot of new players in the mode. And if you got locked there, you literally couldn't even progress. So now you can smoothly transition into building your team. MyGM also got a fix. Certain off-season tasks weren't completing or generating correctly, which might not sound major, but for people who like playing GM mode and managing every detail of their franchise, it was breaking the immersion. With this patch, those tasks should run the way they're supposed to. And if you're playing on PC, there are a couple of small but important fixes too. One was that the keyboard prompts for alley-oops in online games were incorrect, which was super confusing if you rely on those prompts to know the right button combo. That's corrected. Also, custom shoes that you owned weren't showing up in your closet, and that's been fixed too. So overall, what does this patch mean for the game? It's not the kind of update where they overhaul gameplay mechanics or change how shooting feels or anything that dramatic, but it does smooth out so many little frustrations that stack up over time. The crashes, the hangs, the missing perks, the incorrect challenge tracking. All those little things add up and make the game feel broken when they don't work. By cleaning up a lot of those pain points, 2K is essentially making the game more stable and fair for everyone. If you've been on the fence about whether or not to keep grinding, this patch might give you more reasons to stick with it. Especially if you're someone who lost perks from leaving a crew or couldn't unlock Rebirth, it feels good to know those issues are behind us. On the competitive side, fixes to takeover abilities and program camera cuts are going to be noticed immediately by the hardcore players. And for the more casual side, things like the auction house fix and my court tracking being corrected just make the day-to-day grind less frustrating. Now, let me give you my personal take here. I think 2K still has work to do when it comes to balancing gameplay, making sure shooting and defense feel fair across all builds, and addressing community concerns about microtransactions. None of that got touched in this update, at least not in any documented way. But at the same time, these quality of life patches are necessary. They show that the devs are at least paying attention to what's breaking and what needs urgent fixing. This is one of those patches that clears the way for bigger changes later, because now players aren't stuck dealing with bugs that just stop progress completely. And if you've been keeping track, we're still early in the game's life cycle. Update 1.0 for dropping this soon shows that 2K wants to stay on top of problems instead of letting them linger for months. That's a good sign. But like always, the true test will be how the community feels after a week or two of playing on this patch.